And I am obviously very curious to see what that paint scheme ends up looking like. Obviously, that paint scheme is the oldest one that he's been running. It's an awesome paint scheme. I love the Diamond Mountain Dew paint scheme, but he's had it now for quite a few years, and so it looks like they're going to be updating that paint scheme. Really curious to see what they end up coming up with. Probably the one that I've been most interested in. I'm way into paint schemes. If you listen to the podcast at all, I'm way into paint schemes, and so if you've heard the previous ones, you'll know that I'm really curious to see what he chooses, because Dale Jr. usually has a big hand in the paint schemes that he chooses. That's pretty much the only thing, though, available at the website this week, apart from the items that we talked about last week. And again, this is usually what happens at the end of the year. You don't get a lot of new stuff apart from perhaps die casts of the new paint schemes that they've unveiled so far, and usually they don't have any new gear for next year's paint schemes yet, like t-shirts and stuff. Usually you have to wait until after the holiday season is done before you can start purchasing the hats and the t-shirts that match the new paint schemes. All right, let's go ahead and move over to Martinsville. Qualifying was atrocious, and it was funny. I was watching or actually listening to qualifying, because they aired it delayed because there was some horse race on or something. And I was really getting worried because they did not qualify well at all. And I'm like, oh man, seriously? They're going to go to Martinsville, the place where they won last year, and they're off the truck. They're going to be slow. And they were. He ended up qualifying 22nd. I didn't make it through to the third round. He made it into the second round, right? Yes, he didn't make it past the second round to the third round. And a lot of people frustrated online, but I kind of put it aside and said, let's see how the car is come practice on Saturday. The good news is the car's stupid fast. He was top of the leaderboard in first practice. He was Dale Jr. was fastest in the 10-lap averages in first practice on Saturday. In second practice, he was fifth fastest on the leaderboard, and again, you can't really pay attention to that because people are on different agendas and not necessarily looking to run hot laps. He was third in top 10 consecutive lap averages, with Joey Logano and Jimmy Johnson just above him. Now, if you go back, and let me do this real quick. If you go back and look at I want to look at the practice speeds really quick to see where Joey and Jimmy Johnson were in first practice. All right, it looks like Joey Logano really helped his car in final practice, because he's nowhere near the 10-lap averages in the top 10 from the first practice. Jimmy Johnson's up there, though. He was third. And if you look at the speeds from one to the other, they're pretty comparable. Basically what I'm doing is I'm looking at both practices, top 10 lap averages, as they compare from practice to practice, and driver in those top three. They're all right together. So what does that mean? Well, it means that Dale Jr. has a shot at the win. All the factors that go into the race, keeping the fenders on it, don't get too beat up, make sure you don't wreck, make sure you don't wear out the brakes. All the factors that go into it when you're looking at just pure speed in the car. It looks like Dale Jr. has got a hot rod for Sunday, and he has something that he, wants to accomplish. He wants to win a clock for Greg Ives. Greg Ives has been there as a car chief, but hasn't won before at Martinsville. Doesn't have a clock, and so he wants to win a clock for Greg Ives. When we look at, before I give you my prediction, I think you already know where I'm heading. When you look at Dale Jr.'s tweets, here's a couple of them from today. Car was pretty solid in practice. Won today. Feels like things are lining up well for a good race. See if we can learn more in P2. He mentions that Cole Custer won the pole for the truck, so I'm going to go watch that. It's actually on right now. I got it recording. I'm going to go watch it as soon as we're done. Let's see. Another good practice for the Nationwide 88. Good lap times, like the balance. She's race ready. So, and again, when Dale Jr. is tweeting about the car, he is happy about the car. So that's good news. So what do I predict? Same thing I predicted last week. I think Dale Jr.'s going for the win. He has the car for the win. He did it last year. I think that he can do it again this year. And I guess it's just that simple. I go top 5, but you know what? I'm going to be confident and say that the pressure is off now. This team doesn't have to worry about the chase because they're not in it. They've got nothing to lose. He's motivated. Martinsville's one of his favorite tracks. If there is a track where he can repeat like he did at Pocono, it certainly would be Martinsville. And wouldn't that be nice to be able to put what happened at Talladega behind us to close this season out? I know that all of us wish that he was fighting for a championship, and that was not the way that you want to go out. But as Dale Jr. said, if they had better runs in the races prior, they would not have had to have been in the position they were on Sunday last weekend to win it, to advance. And they're going to have to do a better job when they start these chases. Maybe next week we'll talk a little bit more about who is more responsible for that. I mean, and maybe that's not a fair assessment. I'd have to look back at last year to find out exactly what bit the team that put him in the position last year when they had to win to get in it, to advance in the chase. This year it wasn't all him. The cars weren't fast, but they had a lot of mistakes. And that's what was so frustrating about last weekend, is that they overcame whatever mistakes they had, and they had the car to win, and it just felt like it was stolen from him and from all of us. But let's put it aside, and let's look at Martinsville this weekend, and let's see Dale Jr. put that Nationwide 88 in victory lane, get Greg Ives that clock that he wants, and maybe we can notch up a couple of wins before the end of the season. I wasn't, by the way, just as a preview, and not a preview, but just as a comment, I live in Tucson, Arizona, and kind of was trying to decide whether or not I was going to go to Phoenix. I usually go to both races, but there's just been a lot of ancillary stuff going on. It looks like I may have gotten some media passes through the radio station and some hot passes. So, I went from maybe not even going to the race to, wow, I may go to the race and actually have some access that I haven't had for a long, long time. So I am kind of excited about that. So we'll see. Not that it matters to you. I'm not trying to brag. That just would be awesome. So looking forward to the race tomorrow. I wasn't after last weekend, I'll be honest with you. I was kind of like, ugh. I don't want the season to end this way. And looks like it may not. Looks like Dale Jr.'s got a hot rod, car fast enough to put it in victory lane as long as there are no mistakes, and he can keep the fenders, somewhat on it throughout all of the race tomorrow. So, as always, thank you so much for checking out the broadcast. This is the first live broadcast. I know if you're listening to this on the podcast, you're like, what? No, I've got it set up now where I can actually live broadcast the podcast. And so for those that are listening to it live, thanks for tuning in. For those that are listening on the podcast, thanks for downloading it. As always, go to iTunes and search The John Justice Show, My Nerd World. Subscribe while you're at iTunes. Drop me a rating if you can. That would really help me out. If you ever want to email, you can always email me, justice and the numbers 1041 at gmail.com. Justice1041@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter at John Justice. That's JON. And if you go to epictimes.com, I'm a contributor there, so you may have found this through Epic Times. You can follow me there as well through the Epic Times, and I put up a preview of it and make it available via Epic Times. So if you get it through that website, thanks for going there and checking it out. So look for Dale Jr. in Victory Lane. Look for another broadcast and podcast next week for My Nerd World and the Dale Jr. race preview. So until you hear from me next week, I hope you have a great one. I hope it's a great race, and go Junior.
My Nerd World.
And finally, for the most unusual pre-race prayers you will ever hear.
Heavenly Father, we thank you tonight for all your blessings. You said in all things give thanks. So we want to thank you tonight for these mighty machines that you've brought before us. Thank you for the Dodges and the Toyotas. Thank you for the Fords. And most of all, we thank you for Roush and Yates partnering to give us the power that we see before us tonight. Thank you for Jim Performance Technology and the RO7 engines. Thank you for Sonoma Racing Fuel and Goodyear Tires to bring performance
World.